Welcome to the Out of a Sham podcast. We are having conversation, dialogue, and reflection on who are you? People always say, oh, I know who I am. I'm this and I'm that. But are you? How do you really know who you are? How do I know who I really am? How do you know when you've come to a place that you're secure and understand yourself fully? Cole, we was talking about that situation with Peter. What was you what were you reflecting on regarding Peter and him knowing who he was, right?
Peter, aka the pull-up man. Peter was always on guard. Always.
Always ready to snap at any moment.
But even he succumbed. So based on our discussion, earlier I was mentioning how when the prophecy was given to him that he will deny Christ, he was like, nah, not me. And he knew who himself to be. Like, if you needed him for any other thing, sure enough, he always came through. But as the story goes on, we see that in the right time, in the right situation, that same person who is so confident, so loyal at that point, immediately did the 180 and said, oh, I don't know him. I don't know him. So, but I believe, to go back to answer your question, I think how we know who we are based on a lot of times through our life experiences. I think the longer, I don't think it's ever a closed shut case like this is who I am and this is it. There's always things that you don't know about yourself that situations and experiences would then reveal in different times and ages and stages within one's life.
Mm-hmm. And I think about even Judas. I remember when I was in school, they talked about Judas, who portrayed the Savior, he was the Iscariot. He was a zealot, meaning he was wanting Rome to go down. And he saw the power that the Savior displayed on so many occasions. So he was in his flesh and in his carnality and his deception. He was easy to become deceived. That's why the Savior told him, I know Satan got you already, because you see me doing all these miracles, but these miracles and these things I do are in alignment with what the Most High has called me to do within this season. And because of your personality trait and your bloodline, you being a part of our fold would be the entry point through which calamity is going to come, but it's also going to be turned for good, because everything is turned for good when you're walking in according to the will of the Most High. But in his mind, he could only see one way. He was like, nah, we need to get free. I'm about getting things popping. He was like a Peter, but on steroids. Peter was like an 8. Judas Iscariot. They gave his name Iscariot. That means that Bama was a zealot. Judas the zealot. He was ready to rumble and overthrow government at any time until the right situation pulled up, which was what? Moolah, cash flow, cash money. Money makes people funny, right? Even in my own personal life, I've experienced even recently a really close friend of mine who we done business together, but it appears that money get a hold of you and start to make you compromise your principles, right? So when Judas was in a situation with the collaborators, he was like, well, I think I could get them to do A, B, C, and D. He couldn't discern that they were setting him up and setting the Savior up. But he was like, nah, we can make it happen. We gonna move it like this. And then look, I'm gonna kiss him right. And I'm gonna just da-da-da-da-da. And he was running game, but he didn't know that he was a part of prophecy, but from the other side. Just like you said earlier, Peter was in prophecy, but he said, don't worry about that, because I've prayed for you, and that Most High will restore you, because that was done out of weakness as opposed to done out of maliciousness. So everything is about the intention. What is the AI? The attention and intention of your heart.
Right.
And that is what forms who you are. So from my point of view, you never really know your fullness. That's how powerful you are. As long as you're alive, you're learning more about yourself. Learning more about your situation. Because right now, you are a certain type of person, like, this is the way I am. But if you go to jail, you're going to have to change who you are, or you ain't going to survive, right? You get what I'm saying? Like, if you're a calm person and you're not confrontational and you get thrown into the state pen, not federal, I'm talking about state, that's a totally different ball game, and you have to, and if you're in there for many years, you're gonna have to adjust.
Thumbs up.
Thumbs up can happen. Anything.
So, but no, it's true. It's true how your environment. Because I think we had this conversation about. We asked, can one's values change over time? Like, where does because value system, where does that come from? Because that's intertwined in the understanding who you are. Because usually, it's not necessarily the moral compass that people are governed by, but they oftentimes make that line in the sand, if you will, or that type of determination based on what I've been told or what I think I'm supposed to be, and then all couched in what my personality is like, what I'm willing to do, what I'm not willing to do. So it becomes this mixed bag. But then, like I said, oftentimes it's usually through life experiences that you can really come and be like, oh, okay, now I understand why I've always been hesitant in this area, because this is how I am. And the more I try to go out of the comfort zone, I always find my way back here. So this is like their baseline from which they moniker and they move as they maneuver throughout life and society as a whole.
Yeah, and I think one of the key things to understanding, like you said, your environment, if your physical body maneuvers because of the environment, whether it be you're in the sun, you get a tan, or whether you're in cold areas over centuries of time, your phenotypes and such begin to change and conform to the image of whatever is that's around you. That's why the scripture talks about good company corrupts good morals in principle, but it's more about two can't walk together unless they agree. It's
that's the baseline.
And the yoke, the idea is two yokes. If you have two animals side by side and you put a yoke on them and they're walking and one gets sick, this one gets sick and it begins to disease and begins to falter. Now that weight is being pulled by the healthy one. Now the question is the sick one going to infect the healthy, or is the healthy going to infect the sick? It's going to be the unhealthy one is going to begin to affect the healthy one. So as he's dragging them along, and the flies and all the different things are beginning to happen, it's going to begin to contaminate. So the environment you're in is what controls who you are. And a lot of times, if you, as you said in our conversation, if your identity is tied into external things, like I'm a lawyer or I'm a this, and you tie to something outside yourself, that means you're vulnerable. You are vulnerable at that point, because now you can be bought, you can be manipulated, you can be controlled based on who you think you are. So say, for instance, they're like, hey, if you want this next position, you need to do A, B, C, or D. And if you feel your identity is tied, I worked so hard for it, that's when you compromise yourself. And now who you are becomes defined by what someone else thinks or what someone wants. And that's the way society is built. That's why the systems are created, so that your dream, you were born to be a Marine, or you were born to be this or that, when it's all actuality, you were born to be the image of the Most High and to be a creative and a creator.
So how I'm understanding what you just said then, so accomplishments aren't tied, even though we know people tend to amplify what they've done and make that the badge from which they want the world to see them from, or the lens. Typically, accomplishments shouldn't be what you lead with. They shouldn't even matter in life in general.
Nah, it's cool. It's okay to have accomplishments, but if that's what's defining you, that's why I always refer back to Mike Tyson. He's my favorite example of that, where they did an interview on him and he was like, these titles, look at all these titles you accomplished. He threw it on for, said, that's nothing. It's stuff. It's just stuff. It doesn't mean anything. It means nothing. Because at the end of the day, if you pull back from, and a lot of that is steeped in idolatry, right? And the way they've set up the systems, the gods, or the idol. This is my idol. Anytime you begin to operate in those spaces, which a lot of our society is built on, success and being prosperous. Like, oh, he's successful because he has a lot of material things, or he has accomplished this or accomplished that. That is not to say you shouldn't accomplish things, but that is not the driving force through who you are and who you become. Because I know a lot of successful people who they don't know who they are. You could look at them and they're like a shell.
Right.
They're being handled. They are controlled. They are different forms of people that appear to be successful, but isn't necessarily have a soul or a root the one thing we loved about Tupac, from what we understand, is that he was always true to himself, but yet he was still successful, right? So if we're using him as an example, though we don't really know, it's all images, that prototype or that archetype or that personification of an individual is be true to oneself. And the question is, well, who is oneself? And how do you define who you are? Most people, like we said earlier, are going to define who they are based on their experience, where they came from. You know, I came up from the streets, or I came up as a single mom, or I came up in a abusive this or whatever, or I came from another country. Everyone has their stories that shape who we are, and that's understood. But you are constantly growing into the fullness of what the Most High has created you to be, and that your journey should be about what is the internal values and the bloodline and the mental proclivities and gifts within me that I am discovering as I move along in this life. And it will manifest through a career or through a discipline or through a job or through a practice or a talent. But the core of who I am, the heartbeat of who I am, is based in my identity and knowing who I am. And if you don't know who you are in those fundamental spaces of your culture, your bloodline, your people groups, at least moving towards that, you're going to always just adopt and adapt. Things come up, oh, I'm like them. And you could tell a lot, and they say, don't judge a book by its cover. But the way people show in the outward gives a reflection of how they think and how they see, right? So if a person who wears everything fake, everything is fake on them, in most cases, if you dig deeper beyond the brainwash or beyond the pain or whatever reason for why they're doing it or the insecurity, you will find that there's something that was missing in their development that caused an alteration in their perception of themselves, right? So who are you ultimately starts with, how do you see yourself?
So, you know, on that same line of thinking, I think one key factor in all this is that idea that we always talk about purpose. I think purpose, if one understands their purpose, they ultimately understand who they are, because they understand how they need to maneuver, how they need to function according to the alignment of whatever purpose it is. So when we talked about accomplishments, I know for me, I've talked to numerous people, jobs, status, opportunities, if it's in alignment of purpose, then it's a part of that journey. It's not something to be had, to be accomplished, to have that badge of honor. No, it was just a stepping stone to where you need to be. So it's sort of like how Joseph going into captivity in order to get into the palace. He had to go to jail before all this even happened. I don't think he saw that as an accomplishment. That was a part of the life's journey to get him to where he needed to be in order to what? Then help the masses, because that was the purpose. So while he's sitting in jail, while he's going through these different things, while he's interacting with this butler, when he's going through this, interacting with kings, that was a part of the journey. The journey is ultimately, once you'll know who you are once you're in alignment. But a lot of us aren't in alignment. So that's why there's so much to and fro, back and forth, because you can never have surety unless the foundation is secure. We don't know what the foundation is until you know what that purpose is. So when we take it to the whether it's the entertainment or the NBA, LeBron James knew at an early age that he had a love for basketball. So his decision for who he saw himself to be and what he needed to do was easy. Slam dunk. No pun intended. But he knew that his attributes, his skill sets, his IQ is going to take him in this direction. And that was the foundation. It all started there. Then, as the popularity grew, as he began to grow and being able to expand his skill and his reach globally, now, because that foundation is already set, now he can then fall into alignment with other initiatives and things outside of what we see him to be an athlete that he can really take on. Oh, I want to go into media. Oh, I want to go into education. Oh, I want to go into philanthropy. But it all started with alignment. If he decided not to go into basketball, would he be in the places or have the reach that we have? Maybe. Mm-hmm. But once I say he made that decision early in life, and a lot of people make that decision early in life, that makes it much, much easier as they go. They're going to have the ups and downs in their journeys, definitely. But in order to reach that pinnacle, that apex, that moment of, yes, I've done it. I've accomplished what I've set out to do. It takes understanding your foundation, which is your purpose. Mm-hmm. This is why we always reiterate, what is your purpose? What are you doing this here for? Mm-hmm. What is, like you mentioned, what are your intentions? Mm-hmm. What is driving you internally in order to chase this thing or to pursue this thing with every fiber in your body? I think that's why a lot of us don't, when we talk about that term ambition, some people aren't ambitious in the way the world defines it because they don't understand what they're supposed to be looking for. Like a lion knows what a lion's supposed to do. So when it sees the elk running or that animal running, it knows I need to go get it. I haven't eaten in 6 months. I need to go get that food. The lion knows it's a predator. It's going to natch and its natural instinct and go. It's not going to negotiate. It's not going to talk. Should I do this? No. Natural inclination is boom, go get it. Because it understands its purpose. There's nothing else distracting it from its goal. But we can think, we can reason. There's so many different things that cloud our visions that is oftentimes is very difficult to kind of move away from the smoke and move this away to really understand what's going on. Hence why I'm a firm believer in solitude, in prayer. It centers you to help you understand that life is bigger than you and you have to rely on something that's outside of your realm. Whatever term people want to use, they call it meditation, whatever you want to call it. The human beings are designed, you have to have some level of discipline where you have solitude and an alignment from a spiritual perspective. Because that's the only time where a lot of the noises that we hear begin to die down. It gets very mute, and then you can kind of focus. As you know, as we talk every morning, 5 o'clock, 6:30 in the morning, you outside. You don't hear anything. It's silent. The air. So then you can understand what the scriptures are saying about the Garden of Eden when they walked in the cool of the day. Like it's just, your mind is free. You can hear everyone is asleep. At prime time at noon, that's when all the chaos is happening. It's very difficult to focus and do things at that time. But early in the morning, you understand what David was talking about. Early in the morning, he's like, you know what? This is the time where you can maneuver. This is where you can hear. This is where you
early
can
when
focus.
I will seek you early.
There you go.
Yeah.
Early.
Yeah.
It's early. But it comes back to that alignment piece. That alignment piece is what we're trying to get people to understand, as well as try to begin to people to have that deeper conversation within themselves. Like all the things I've done, the exploits, the things that I've tried to accomplish that I thought this was what it was, but now I'm starting to realizing I don't have any fulfillment. Why don't you have fulfillment? Because it wasn't purposely done. It wasn't what you were supposed to be emphasizing or engulfing yourself in. So now that you have achieved the thing, it was like, I worked all this hard for this. What's your purpose? What's your purpose?
And to swing back, because you said it so beautifully, you think about how we find our purpose. When the Most High created everything, he gave it its purpose. I'm taking my time through Genesis 1-5, and it talks about he made these fish after its kind in its generations. And he talks about how he started the seed level of everything that we see, and then he rested. He said, okay, I don't have to do anymore because now it's just going to replicate and multiply itself because I've already put it in motion. Let's take that concept and you ask yourself, well, how am I supposed to know? You will know, and you can know, because guess what? Human beings have never stopped being. So first of all, you got to get out of the construct right now, because we're in construct, we're in captivity, we're in colonization, we're in all these different, like you said, distractions. It's so hard to hear the still small voice of the beginning, meaning the internal. So when you're in the quiet and you're in the area where it's at the top of the morning or top of the early rising, that's where the beginning starts. So let's walk quickly through Joseph, and I'm sure we'll spend some time in Joseph in the coming weeks. What was the power that Joseph had? His bloodline, his family. He understood culturally who he was. He understood he came from Jacob. Jacob was his father, and he understood Abram was his great grandfather. So that storyline was embedded in him. He knew who he was. If you look at some of these politicians, you can see that they know who their ancestors are. They know them. They interacted with them, and messaging has been passed down. So if a sense of being has been passed down for over, say, 100 years, you're going to have a stronger sense of self than the brokenness that we see, whether it be broken families, single homes, so forth and so on. Those elements that develop the soul to know who you are becomes lost, and that's where the enemy can come in and sow tares through all kinds of things and bring in these false fulfillments that make you feel a certain way, but it's not actually fulfilling you, but it's setting you up. Right? So Joseph understood that going in, and the Most High knew that I need to put this in him so that he can get to the fullness of his purpose and understand it later on. So all the bad things that appeared to be bad. But remember, the scripture says in Psalm 82 that the whole earth is out of course because of the decisions, whether it be from Adam and Eve, the firstborn of creation, doing what they did, through the courses off. So everyone is off, and you have to still get back to Eden. You still have to get back to the original status that the Most High created from the beginning. So that's a journey. I like to liken that to travel. If you're traveling from one end to the other, you don't know what you're going to encounter, but you will encounter obstacles, good times, bad times, ups and downs. So Joseph, he tells his brother, I see the vision. I'm going to be running stuff. This is the cloudedness because he's still young. His ego is there. All these different personal things that come to all of us. Because when you're a child, didn't you have a dream? Man, I'm going to be a this. Or I'm going to be this kind of person. Or I'm going to be whatever it is your dream is, right? And a lot of times in our society, it's tied to being something specific. Like I'm going to be a lawyer. I'm going to be a doctor. I'm going to be a fireman. I didn't know anybody in my neighborhood who said they want to be a fireman, but point is, you have a place you want to be. So Joseph said, man, I got this dream and you guys were bowing to me. So his brothers, they feel in a certain way. Why are they feeling a certain way? Because they understand, first of all, that his mother, Rachel, was their father's favorite white woman. They came from Leah. They came from the other one because Jacob had 4 wives, Bilhah, Leah, Rachel, and Zilpah. Those were his 4 wives, and one was a concubine. 2 of them were like concubines, and 2 were the main wives who were sisters. Now, in that setting, and in certain settings around the world, there is the multiple wife situation. But in this particular case and storyline, he had 4 wives, and they all had children, and they were all living together as a community, as a tribe. And he had the resources to handle that, right? So they're all there, but in that, you're going to always find some drama. So imagine the favorite one is saying, I was ruling and y'all bowed to me. I was like the sun, and y'all and y'all were the stars, and y'all were bowing to me. They got really hot, so they didn't really like him from that, right? But what he was saying was not untrue. It was true, but the timing and the way he was approaching it was causing envy and jealousy and hatred to begin to fester in his internal space, right? So then what happens? He gets sold by his brothers, like it always happens, whether it's Judas or whether it's Malcolm X or any of the leaders. They always find somebody who's going to snitch or find the brokenness within a group and then give them the power to then bring you down.
Everything. Mm-hmm.
So Joseph was sold, and you can hear him crying in the pit, like, please, brothers, don't do this to me. They're like, shut up, you're dead. You're done. And they were some of them was like, nah, let's kill him. They was like, nah, let's not kill him. Let's sell him over to the Ishmaelites. Now the question is, like, who are the Ishmaelites? So it's really important when you're reading the scriptures to understand these bloodlines so you can understand personality types, tendencies, and personalities that come out of certain types of people groups that, sometimes you'll see a little kid do something like, oh, you got that anger like your grandmama, or you got... That's what that's about, right? So the Ishmaelites were Abram, his great-grandfather's stepson, basically, with Hagar from a different bloodline. They were a part of the house of Japheth, from my perspective, but in the scriptures it says Ham, right? So he was from the house of Ham. And we can talk about that when we get to Genesis 10 and 11, because when we start reading the scriptures critically, things will begin to make sense a little bit more. And the fear of that is most people going to say, oh, you're being reprobate. Oh, you're going against the scripture. You're changing the word. And I'm changing the word? Me.
Let's be like, let's just read the words together. Let's see how we both understand what is just said. Nothing is added to this.
you guys have been flipping the word and changing it and King James in it and da-da-da. So I'm not even going to get into all that.
They've been Catholicizing it from the beginning.
The Joan is already mixed up. Scripture already told us the Joan was mixed up. That's why you have to go by spirit. He said,
crucially,
my spirit will lead you into all truth. So I go by the spirit. I don't go by what y'all say. But anyhow, I acknowledge that understanding, but I have a different perspective, and we'll walk through it when we get there as I'm going through these chronicles. So you have the Ishmaelites, so they sell it to them, like let's sell it to them, so at least it's still in the bloodline. So when you hear them talking, saying let's not sell them, let's not kill them, lest we bear that burden, they're like, nah, let's send them to the Ishmaelites, although they're from the seed of Hagar, and at least they have some of Abram's blood, so it's still within our family type, and they wouldn't kill him. And they didn't kill him. So the Most High had jurisdictional protection over Joseph because, and this is a revelation to me just now, he was, even through our wickedness, if he can get you to still stay within his parameters, he can put a hedge around you. But when you completely step out of covenant, it's difficult. But the Most High knew this was going to happen. So he sent them, like you said, as nomads to move into the space. They get Joseph, they take him and they sell him into Egypt. Egypt was the place where everything was popping, or Kemet. Mm-hmm. Egypt is more of a whitewash now, but Kemet was popping, or the land of Ham, or the land of Japheth, right? Because it says Japheth and Shem shall dwell together in the same tent. And then when you look at the personality traits and different things around Japheth, you can see Ham might have been inserted in there, because most of the Hams that we see to this day is still in European lands, like Birmingham, Nottingham, Amsterdam, Northampton, Ham everywhere, right? So that might be the Isles, and there was a switch up in the translations. Maybe somebody fell asleep and accidentally wrote it down, and then it got stuck. But I'm not going to get into all that. We could deal with that later. So you have Japheth, or you have him going into the land in the east or northeast, which would be what we call Egypt, or the land of Ham, land of Japheth, that region popping from Abraham's time. Remember when Abraham was called out of the Ur Chaldees, he went south, and then there was a famine. Then he went back up north and went to where? Egypt. Everybody go. Egypt has been popping for a long time, even when they was trying to kill the Savior. Where did he end up going for 2 years? Egypt. So he was following what his ancestors did.
Mm-hmm. Same place.
Seed of Abraham. So that's when you hear the promises that the Most High gave to Abraham, that your seed will be a royal seed, will be a lineage, royalty. So anytime you have firstborn peoples, and not all Afro peoples, but there's a certain type of person, and the Most High is going to show it in the fruit of how they do things. They're going to be kingly in the way they operate. They're going to be rulers and moving in those spaces according to their bloodline. So now Joseph is in Egypt. He gets there. He has favor everywhere he going. He is the man. Everywhere he goes, they love him. He's handsome. The women are like, oh my gosh, I need to get with him. Da 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 da. So he's working in Potiphar's house. He's like, all right, cool. I'm on my way back up again. All right, Most High got me. All right. And then his wife was like, nah, I need some of that. He was like, I'm not going to do that. Why would I mess that up? Why would I mess that up and sleep with you when, do you know what I've been through? Da, 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 da. You going to do this or not? Nah, I'm out. Grab him, set him up. Potiphar hot. He like, man, I got to. And Potiphar is like a governor or a mayor of a region, just so you know what that term means within their context. So a lot of the infrastructure that the Greeks picked up was when they came into Egypt or came into Kemet, learning the environment, because they have pharaohs, which were like the emperors, and then you had these different magistrates and different types of Potiphar, and these people who were like governors and judiciary people and councilmen and blah blah blah. So that was the setup. He was there. He got thrown out. He's in jail now. So now he in the pen. So all my brothers who are in the pen, I love what Peter Tosh said. You may be behind bars somewhere in captivity, but just have faith. The Most High will bring you through. So do you have that situation happen? He's there, and he's, like you said, working with the butler, working with everywhere he go. He was still the top in that area. So like the jail, the warden was like, nah, listen to Joseph, because he speaks dreams. He sees dreams. Remember that same dream he saw of him being the top and then bowing? He's still seeing them dreams, and he telling people what's about to happen. This gonna happen. This gonna happen. Dude got killed. Oh snap! The butler got killed, but the baker was cool. No, it was the baker who got killed, and the butler that that was saved. So when the butler, after he told him a dream, butler was like, man, I'm going back. Man, he's like, yo, you know what I'm saying? Like, you know how it is down here. Just look out for me, though. You know what I'm saying? When you get up there, you know how it always is. Even in Hollywood, I work with certain people, and we all starting off. They get a hot single, they're gone, and you like, all right, man, look out for me. When you get in the studio with them, yeah, you know, hit me up.
Got you.
Okay, yeah, all right.
I'll hear from ever again.
Never. And the scripture says, oh, that thing is still in you since you're 17 years old. You still looking for glory. You're not understanding that glory is supposed to be me flowing through you, but you wanna show off so you can be like, told y'all brothers I was gonna do that. Let him sit there for 2 more years till he was at the bottom. And then the butler, Most High, then, once again, because that seed was planted, wake him up. Butler's like, oh, because the king was running into an issue. He's like, yo, there's this dude I know who was in the jail and da-da-da-da. And he did this and he did that, and it was true. And the king was like, all right, since you didn't snitch and I found out that you was right, I'm going to take your advice. All right, tell him to come in. So they was like, hey, yo, Joseph, King was trying to talk to you. Me? At that time, he was already broke, disgusted, working at UPS, working cleaning old people, doing all kind of stuff, working at the grocery store midnight with his iPod on.
but you know, even right before even the king even coming to that conclusion with that, you remember even before he got sold, what his dad gave him that coat. It was already envious because he was dad's beloved. He was a favorite one. He gave him the coat of many colors. Like, so there was already animosity. Like, dad puts him on a pedestal. He was a favorite child per se in the midst of all the brethren, right? And then even when he's in jail captivity, when he gets set up per se, Potiphar didn't kill him because Potiphar knew who he was. You see? So his reputation preceded him because he was like, that ain't my Joseph. Because I'm sure he knew who his wife was and he knew Joseph. That's why he was confused and perplexed. But as a king, he had to make a decision. He had to do something. So he threw him in jail. But if this was somebody else, it would have been off with his head. So you see, like you mentioned, there's a limit to the level of persecution that you will be false, especially when you're innocent. Nothing happened to you. Like, you didn't do anything. You're like, why is this happening? It was a part of that journey.
Most High is a shield, and he'll protect you through all things. You may think it's bad, and even the things that you've gone through, most of it is that your pride was hurt, or the image of what you perceived was supposed to happen didn't work out the way you did, so you took it personally and it hurt. But you're still in good health. I can still eat. I can still walk. All my health is good, so forth and so on. So it's more of image. It's all in the mind, and that's what Joseph had to go through. He had to purge Joseph. So Joseph now comes up and says, when he asked me, he said, I got this dream. There were 7 fat calves and then 7 skinny or famished calves or cows. And Joseph was like, no one can get the interpretation unless the Most High brings it. He had aligned himself to his bloodline. He was in his Abram flow now. And that's why the Most High was like, good, I got all the flesh out. I got out of his insecurities. I got all the things that he picked up, things that was passed down from his forefathers, him fighting with his brothers. Imagine 12 brothers. You got to hold your own. You got the coat on, like you said, the coat of many colors.
You the target.
You in trouble. You in trouble because everybody want your spot. So then what happens? He now says, let me talk to the father and figure out what's going on, because he knew that was a part of his legacy. That was a part of his heritage as a bloodline individual who came from the seed of Abram. He knew who he was, even though his outside reflection wasn't showing it, right? So your outside reflection can't dictate to who you are. It has to come from who you are on the inside, and then the outside will begin to manifest and put into place. And once again, when I use these words manifest, because the fallen has taken it and made it into something that's more about selfishness and about, me manifesting materialism. Nah, you manifest who you are and it will show up in the material. That nuance is very important, because once you start manifesting, that's when idolatry kicks in, and then the enemy catches you, and that has to deal a lot with a lack of knowing who you are and thinking that you being able to manifest is who you are. There's these nuances. So anyhow, you have Joseph tells, and now the king is like, man, that's it. What you just said, that's exactly what's it, because that makes more sense, because the weather, I'm sure he had all these different reasons for, like, that's his God is the true God. We're listening. And matter of fact, because he told you, I know I'm smart. I'm just gonna fall back and let you take care of this portion and you be ruler over that. Why? Because he did the research. He knew he was good at Potiphar's house. He did good. When he was in jail, he was faithful there. So he's like, this dude is faithful. His background checks out. Let's roll with him.
He good.
So now he's moving and he's getting the grains. What did he do? He got the most important things. That's what we're doing even with Ashan. We're following that, our ancestral bloodline, where the best things to grow are things that don't spoil, that you can put in silos: wheat, rice, and beans. What is Ukraine and all them fighting over right now? Wheat. We better read this Bible properly. You see? So once you understand,
resources are crucial.
You got wheat, you got grain, you straight, and you can live forever. You got enough wheat and grain.
We don't need TikTok. We don't need Instagram. We don't need that. We need YouTube.
Like we talked about earlier, if they shut down the internet, what's your number?
Some madness in the street.
I know it started with 202, but other than that, I'm lost.
Say, shame.
Shame.
I know 747. That's all I know.
That's a shame, but we got our code for what we need to do.
You already know what it is.
Yeah, so we already know. We got to tighten it up stronger, but exactly. Yeah. Nah, that's too far. But we'll discuss that later. I mean, push come to shove, certain amount. I'm gonna just go there anyway.
Lamberts, hey, we can have a middle ground. We know we gotta be in the hills. Is it Lambert?
Well, cool.
But you know, right? But you know, another thing you had just said though. So let's do some Bible trivia, right? So who did Jesus tell? Who the men say that I am? So
he asked that to all of his disciples, and then Peter responded and said what he said.
And said, what did Peter say?
Thou art the Christ, the anointed one. You are our King.
But that was before, because it said they say, because usually, see,
that's true.
They start saying with all the voices. Well, they said you're this. No, who do you say? See, how do you understand it to be? Because that's the direct question, right? Not what you heard on TV, what you read about, what they said. Now, what is your direct experience? Because that's where it comes down to. He was talking to the heart of the man. That's when he brought that revelation of, oh, this is who you are.
Yeah.
This is who you are. So once again, but you got to understand that baseline for where that's drawn from, because he experienced, he saw, he walked. So it was a lived experience with Jesus at that time, you know. But it's amazing though, the abilities and what we have, because as you mentioned so nicely earlier, is that the things that we think are bad, in a lot of cases, aren't really that bad, because we always use the examples of going to the gym or going on a run. Sometimes you're not up to it. And you're dreading thinking about, oh, I got to do this, but you like the results. When you see the results and you know it's good for you, how it's preserving you, keeping you up, getting your wind up, keeping your stamina up, you enjoy that. But going through the process is where people don't enjoy. So, but that's everything with life. So everybody has to go through a process. And the process, because we're earthly, fleshly beings, is not going to be loving, fulfilling, and make you feel good all the time. Good food usually doesn't taste the best. When you taste the foreign objects, the sugars, the process, you're like, you can't stop eating it. But that's the stuff that's killing you. But then when you say, let's go get some grains, you're like, some legumes, right? What the scripture say? Pulse. Let's get some vegetables. You're like, that's boring. Yeah, but that's the stuff that keeps you alive. But you have to train yourself, because you have adopted so many foreign habits. Now you're always salivating and craving these things that are literally working against life as we know it. So, but that's life. You got to understand that, because if we change our mind and know, okay, you know what, this doesn't feel good, but I got to do it. I got to do it. That's the motivation. Yeah, I need to do this. Why? Because this is what's required of me, or this is what I need to get to. So I got to do it. I can't slack, because if I slack, that's going to pull me back. Got to do it. So that's why you see people become driven almost to the point of insanity. They become like obsessed with it when they're really pushing and pushing. And those are the ones who usually get to that point, because they're driven and nothing can throw them off course. Crucial. And we got to adopt that same mentality in a lot of things in our lives as individuals.
So with what you just said, we swing back into the account of Joseph's life. So Joseph is now in a place of authority, but under authority. He's in alignment with, and this is in a land that is not his own, right? So you can, Most High can prosper you amongst the nations or other people, but still know a root of who you are. So once the famine was hitting all of the lands and people were lacking food, he began to understand his purpose. When he saw his brothers So when Joseph saw his brothers, we it's fair to say, and we know that the people from Kemet or Egypt means land of the dark skin or dark skin. When the children came through, when his siblings came through, they didn't notice him. Why didn't they notice him? Because everybody was dark. If they were a different color, they would have spotted each other automatically, and then it would have been so. The only way they knew each other was through language. He could hear his mother tongue among them, so he's just sitting there and listening to him. But he could speak the language of the Egyptians. So he's up there and listening to him, and he began to realize, there goes my brothers. And what happened? Because the Most High fortified his soul, he had the strength to not result in anger and in revenge, but he did struggle with that, but he did it in little ways. Remember, he'll put the cup in this area and say, oh, you guys are thieves. I need this. But he used it to say, I've overcome because now I understand why the Most High. So a lot of times when you go through a lot of things, you can surpass petty stuff. You know ultimately how to move. You move in chess and not in checkers. People who are petty and emotional and compulsive is like, king me. Jump, 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 jump.
Oh, I'm going to get you back.
Chess,
It's time for revenge.
Chess is like, you got it. Chess is like, Most High knows what he's doing. So he ends up seeing his brother. He's like, wow, these guys are helping me, and I can use my authority to maneuver them. And then he put them in a position where they had to trust the Most High like he did. And then he was, at the end of the day, when he reconciled with his brother, he said, you meant it for evil, but the Most High meant it for good, to save many, not me. So it's not about you. Your purpose is, how do you fit in the micro or the macro through your micro, through your individual action. You may think, well, I'm not reaching tons of people. It may not be reaching tons of people. It may be reaching that one person that might reach tons of people. You get what I'm saying? So we can't go by our own wisdom. Scripture says, do not lean in your own understanding. It's about being obedient. Like we said yesterday, obedience and discipline. Discipline to the obedience of what the Most High has given in your heart. So it's important to understand what your passions are and to purify that passion. How does this passion help the world? It can be really that simple. How does this passion help the world? How does this help my community? How does this help myself? How does this help my family? I went backwards, but you can start from inner to family to community to region to nations to the world. And if you think in that sort of trajectory, now you're moving by the pulse and the energy of the world. And now, however you choose to do that through your basketball, like LeBron, you see how he went into all those different things that when he finished basketball is not his purpose. He can pass it to his sons. He can go into education. He can go into the media. He can go into this, go into that. So that's an example of how you can take one thing and then expand yourself to be able to do multiple things, but it's ultimately about people, and especially your people. You can help all people, but you need to help your people. Joseph was talking to who? His people, but he was still feeding the world, right? He was in Egypt, all the nations were coming to get grain from Joseph because he foresaw that this was going to happen. The Most High gave it to him so he could trust him with the keys to the nations. But ultimately, it was to the survival of his own people. So you can't be popping amongst other people and leave your people out of it. That's contrary to the natural law. Remember, we started at the beginning. The natural law is the Most High created one after its own kind. So it's okay to be with your own kind. Lions hang with lions. Cheetahs hang with cheetahs. Although they're cats, they don't force themselves on each other. So in America, what this experiment is, they're trying to make everybody just mix. I can love my own. I could be fully in love with being a firstborn. Let's see if we can see this here. Yeah.
Got the merch.
Firstborn of creation. That's my label or title, if you want to call it. Some people have delineated to Afro, Negro, Black, all these different terms, and all of them have its own silo and connotations with it, right? But when you say firstborn and it's signed in with the scriptures, and because in Genesis chapter 2, Ethiopia, that's where the garden was, and the Most High formed man and female. And then in science, the mitochondrial Eve and Adam, the first bones, Lucy, was what? In Hadar, Ethiopia. We on the science, we in the spirit. That's when you know the Most High is aligning in it, and that's what we need to call ourselves. Because everyone has a name for us. Everyone calls us these different things. Soul man, this. And if you give into those names, someone created that with an intention, attention and intention that opens a portal of thought process. When you hear black, what do you hear? You think negative. You think evil. You think dirt. You think this. So those types of things, when you call yourself by those names, by the names the nations have given us, then you take on that responsibility and you don't know who you are. So though we stepped away from the garden and we've been mixed up in so many different ways, the Most High in these years of the return is saying, come back to me and I'll come back to you. Not to religion, because that's another trap. It's connected to the Most High. Like Coach said, connecting, because the Most High is in you. And you don't need no man to teach you. Doesn't mean you have to be against other people or don't read this, but it's having the understanding of how to approach these things. And that's what we're doing here at the Ashana Foundation.
Yeah, that's true. And that's where the wisdom comes in, because you got to understand. You have to have the mindset to always not just be inquisitive, but to learn. So don't hate the messenger, because you never know how things may be relayed to you or how you may understand certain things. Because there's certain principles that someone from the pulpit is saying, it doesn't make sense to you. It could be a person in your neighborhood. It could be a homeless man that you just take a liking to. You start talking. Then you begin to get that revelation. You're like, oh, that's what that means. That's how But you have to have a heart and a mind to listen. Be what? Slow to speak. But you got always want to listen, hear what people are saying. So you know how to digest, know what to throw away. So you know how to protect yourself and protect, because it's a lot of the programming, the things that are coming from the outside that's causing the mix up, the cloudiness and the tainting of our internal man. But that's why we have to be intentional for what we do, who we're around, the company we keep, the things we watch. All of that matters. Everything. Because we as human beings digest it all. From the fumes in the air, from what we drink, what we enter our bodies, like people you're around, what they talk about. So when you talk about the yoke, if that animal is falling sick and ill, it's just a matter of time before that sickness and that disease passes on. You're too in close proximity of it. Just imagine the people who smoke. Now, when we were younger, they didn't say smoking was bad. Now they're saying secondhand smoke, meaning I don't have to smoke. All I have to do is inhale your smoke and I will have the same effects. So you can imagine just being in proximity in that circle of influence, that ecosystem, it could be detrimental to you. But these are the type of things we want to look at. We want to constantly bring awareness to and engage our people, because ultimately we are here for each other. So as my brother said, the very thing that we're sacrificing, that we're putting all our life efforts in, how does it affect the whole? Who does it benefit? If it doesn't benefit more than just yourself, chances are it's not that worth it. And we have to have a sit down and be like, okay, why is this so important to me? Why? Why am I so privy to this thing? Why is it this thing I can't let go? We were joking earlier about Lot's wife when they would leave in Sodom. And the commandment was don't turn around. Because if you don't, just look for it. Nobody turn around. But she couldn't let go of what was in that land, because what she was going was foreign. So when she turned around, pillar of salt, no one knew what happened because everybody else was obedient. They just looked forward, got left behind. But there's so many things in our lives, so many things that we're tied to a Sodom-like contract, as we mentioned last time, that we can't let go. And because we won't let it go, it's not allowing us to move forward. It's not allowing us to live. It's not allowing us to move into the fulfillment of what we're supposed to do. So it's a beautiful thing, but we got to keep pressing on day by day. Day by day. Day by day. Stay in the Word. Read the scriptures. And understand the scriptures. Like when I read the scriptures, it's almost to me I'm reading an autobiography or a blueprint, because there's nothing new under the sun. So if it happened there, it's bound to happen now, or it is happening now. So when you do see it, you're like, hold up. Oh, matter of fact, that happened back in, hold up. That's the same thing. Kenneth and Anas to understand, we're the same. We're living on the same earth. This is not a new earth that is foreign to what we read about. Like, this is the same planet. Human beings die and fall off, but the earth is where it is. When we talk about global warming, the earth is not going to blow up. We're going to die first. Okay? Everything we're susceptible to. The ocean is going to be there. There's going to be new animals there. There's going to be new species, new plants. The earth is going to be there. We're the ones that get eliminated. Hence why we're trying to do so much to live longer and do too much to prolong our lives, because we know we're not infinite. We are finite. We have an end, and that end will come. But while you're here, how will we maximize? What are we doing to make sure we're being the best, not best versions of ourselves, but the best that God has for us to be? And that you can only determine that by understanding what your purpose is. Because if you're understanding that you're in full alignment and you're doing what you've been destined to do, that's the ultimate fulfillment that anybody on the planet could ever experience. Because once again, we talked about Joseph. Joseph didn't fill out a job application to be in the highest levels in a foreign land. He didn't have to do it. He was tapped. He was appointed by what? His works and his deeds. And then the whispers went across like, man, Joseph, there's a dude in jail. You need to go talk to him. Like, who? Who's in jail? Why did he get in jail? Probably heard a story, almost like going to a judge, like, can you hear my case? Like, not, because people knew he was innocent. And they could tell, like, this is not the seed of a person who's been mischievous or accused of such a crime. He has something bigger. But once again, it was a part of his journey. He had to go through it to understand that he can only rely on one being. That's it. Can't rely on his boy to look out for him to get his next deal. He's like, it's going to be bigger than that. Even though old boy saw you, he understood you have the goods. That's not going to be your way out.
No,
just
he's looking
follow.
out for himself.
And the reason why I want you to see that is to understand I have connections. Just as this same person who's going into King's Court, you don't know who you're talking to. You one conversation, one door, one opportunity away from boom. And then once you hit that level, everything that happened in your past just falls by the wayside. You no longer think about it anymore. Because right now, when you're in struggle mode, it's like, you can all you see is the negative. All you see is the mountains in front of you. You can't see the greener pastures. But once you get to the greener pastures, like I said, when we in Kowu, when we in the mountains, you just looking down the valleys like, it's real clear up here.
Yes.
There's no distractions. You know what I mean? So we're going to get to Kowu, bruh.
We are on our way to Kowu.
The mountaintops.
That's like Lauryn Hill said, life is, you say you want to be used by the Most High, but life is full of peaks and valleys, and don't get caught up in either one, but know how to sustain. Paul said it another way, whether I'm in plenty or I'm in less, I do all things through the power of the Savior, Christ, who strengthens me. Meaning it's a spiritual space you have to always come from. And like we said before, spirit means mental, emotional, the intangibles, that part of your being that is in connection with the unseen while you're still a part of this physical environment. You're wrapped with the earth. The earth is wrapped you, which we call this body. That's why you eat earth to earth. You eat good foods. And the more you become aligned, like you were saying earlier, and you eat properly, then the foods that are like fake and has a lot of chemicals actually start to taste nasty to you. Because sometimes I'll go back like, I'm about to go get this, and you taste like, I can't have that no more. Oh my goodness. But you usually learn that when you're in your later 40s and because you've gone through the seasons, right? But if we can teach our young ones now how to perceive, then you can tap and get those things, but it'll never control you. So you meant it for evil, but the Most High meant it for good, because he can change anything, because he created all things. He created evil and good. He created it, and we can't overstand or understand all that that the Creator has done. Like this beautiful earth you're talking about, been here for however long it's been here. Everyone wants to say it's 1,000,000 years. That's all perception from that individual or that people group. Like those numbers, what is a year? A year is what they say is from this time to this time. But that's man-made times. The term October wasn't used 30,000 years ago, 300, 400 years ago, or let's say 5,000 years ago. So what were they saying? They were calling it or whatever they were calling it. Human beings have interpretation of whatever is in front of them, and they name it, right? That's the power we have as co-creators in this environment. But ultimately, the Most High is the one who has it all. So who are you? Who am I? We are creations made in the image of the Most High. That's the first step. And then as an image of the Most High, you're a caretaker of the earth. And what is your part of the garden you need to be taken care of? And that comes through your journey, following your heart, walking in righteousness, walking in love, walking in peace, and pursuing a passionate pursuit of my contribution on the earth to make it a better place, right? That cliche, but there is truth in it. Like, yes, you make the world a better place, and that's why you're here. You would not be here to hear what we're saying if you weren't supposed to be here. So those underlining penons need to be a part of how we continue to move forward. And we're going to catch you on our next podcast. Peace.